Walking the red carpet isn't really about walking at all.
The night I won the Emmy, what I wore a Erin Moriarty sparkly dress and Prada heels. So I kind of look at Prada as my good luck charm.
At 4 feet 11 inches, actress Kristen Chenoweth can stand tall in heels.
They kill your feet after 4 hours, but it's worth it. If you can't hang in a pair of heels during a red carpet, then you should be in show business. That's what I think.
Clearly, high heels have legs. From Marilyn Monroe.
Look how she moves. That's just like Jell-O on springs.
To Lady Gaga. To celebrities at award shows. High heels have come to symbolize sexuality and power.
Is there any other woman's accessory that really has been as enduring as high heels?
You know, I would be hard-pressed to think of another fashion accessory that has a kind of complicated, polarizing, and fascinating history and enduring history as the high-heeled shoe.
Which is why curator Lisa Small helped create an entire exhibit devoted to high heels.
There's probably about 200 shoes in the show.
Currently at the Brooklyn Museum in New York, the show goes on tour this spring.
Women used to wear hats all the time. They used to wear gloves all the time, and they don't anymore for the most part, but they still wear high-heeled shoes.
But interestingly enough, women weren't the first to wear them.
High-heeled shoes were first worn by men. They were menswear before it became women's fashion.
These heels weren't as much about mobility as nobility.
There's a very famous painting that we reproduce here of King Louis XIV in France wearing his very high red-heeled shoes. Just the idea that height and elevation has always had something to do with indicating class, privilege, power, ideas about confidence, leisure.
Women began to adopt high heels for many of the same reasons. One of the oldest on display is this 16th century shoe called the chopine.
The chopine is definitely a platformed shoe. They had very, very high platforms, but aristocratic women wore them because the longer your dress was and the more sumptuous fabric that you had to use, the more you were signaling how wealthy you were.
Are they easy to walk in?
No, in fact, they're not easy to walk in.
That hasn't changed. And yet, high heels have become a constant staple in women's fashion. Except during the late 18th century, when elevated heels became associated with the excesses of Marie Antoinette.
And for years, it was all about flats, flat slippers. That was the height of fashion. But then slowly, as the 19th century continued, heels inevitably came back into fashion.
Our next assignment, shoes. Shoes for boudoir, evening, and street.
Heels reached new heights and proportions in the 1940s and 50s when technology made the stiletto, or what is also called the killer heel, more stable.
I think a lot of it had to do even with wartime technologies, and the use of steel and extruded metals allowed fashion designers and fabricators to think about a way to use metal in the heel. And once that was solved, literally the sky is the limit. We have a shoe in the exhibition from the mid-50s from a company called Skyscraper.
But even though technology allows us to build these stilettos, that doesn't necessarily mean anybody can walk in them.
Well, no, but it was sort of the aspiration to be able to walk in them.
That's never been a problem for Kristen Chenoweth. Hey, if the show demands it, she'll even dance in heels, as she does in the Broadway musical on the 20th Century.
I love this shoe a lot. It's also bendable, so you can see that I can point my toe, I can flex my foot.
But at the same time, high heels force women to walk in a way that adds stress to the hips and back. So why do they wear them? Exactly because of that walk.
It causes your rear to move. It causes your hips to have to compensate and do the little wiggle. You know, the chest goes out. So these are all biologically determined markers of mating attraction.
And it's not just males who notice. In 2013, the journal Evolution in Human Behavior published the results of a study focusing solely on the way women walk. Those in high heels were judged as significantly more attractive by both men and women than those who wore flats.
There are some people who think women look great in it and women who feel empowered wearing these high-heeled shoes, and others who think that it's denigrating to women.
Absolutely, and women can feel powerful when they wear high-heeled shoes. They can feel more confident, and that's all to the better. But it's a very interesting construction of power. You know, until men in powerful positions also wear high-heeled shoes, it's always going to be a question of what kind of power a high-heeled shoe really conveys.
That doesn't seem to bother those who know and appreciate a real killer heel.
There's just something about a heel that, especially for a woman, it's a man's world, makes me feel stronger. I mean, I could gouge your eyes out with my heel if I wanted to. I'm just saying.